Hey everybody, so today I'm here with my good buddy Jerry Green out of just outside of Dayton, Ohio. And Jerry is the owner of the REI Sales Academy. But before we get into talking about any sales strategies, we're going to talk about this man has got more experience than I could ever dream of at this point. Jerry, how many years you been doing real estate?
30 years.
30 years. Okay, I made a
30 years.
mistake in my post. Made a mistake in my post and said 20, so I was 10 years off. So I apologize.
Well, if that was the case, I'd be 10 years younger. So,
Jerry, I appreciate you taking the time today
no
to come
problem.
on and share some of the wealth of knowledge that you have. I know that you have a major part we'll talk about of impact you had on my personal business. So before we get into that, Jerry, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and why real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Rick. Appreciate you having me on. So, always glad to help out a good friend. So, I guess, Rick, I look at kind of my journey started back in the early 90s when I was living over in Springfield, Ohio. And I started actually when I was in electrical contracting business actually at that time. And that's something we share, kind of old Sparkies, right?
Yeah, old school
So,
electrician.
yeah. So I was doing that. I was working with my dad in electrical contracting business, and that was in Springfield. I remember, during that time we were going through a lot of changes in the business in general, and we were doing a lot of work for general contractors back then. And I'll never forget, I one phone call kind of changed my whole life. It was came in on a Sunday night in my house, and back then we had these things called wall phones, right?
Yeah, Ford.
Yes, had a cord and everything. So phone rang, picked up the phone, and it was a general contractor we'd done a lot of work for. And he called me up, said, "Hey, Jerry," he said, "this is Jim." I said, "Yes." And he started just telling me a little bit. He said, "The reason I'm calling you is we're going to close our operations." And he said, "I wanted to give you a call before we'd done that." I said, "Wow, Jim." I said, "When are you closing?" He said, "Tomorrow morning." So, yeah. So he called me home on a Sunday night. So I said, "Okay." And he says, "I don't know that I'm going to be able to pay you all the money I owe you." And I said, "Okay." So that was, I don't know, Rick, that was probably 60 some thousand dollars, back in the 90s, compared to today. I mean, think about that's a big chunk of money. So we were in a position where we weren't able to recover from that. I actually ended up going bankrupt and trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I was just scratching my head and trying to figure out what direction to go. I was thinking about getting a job as an electrician at the local university in their engineering department. Actually, I had a job interview on that in several job interviews. But at the same time, I was doing that. I started reading some books, listening to cassette tapes. Some of you guys listening, probably, what's a cassette tape? Okay. But Rick, you probably remember that, bro, don't you?
Do. I sure
So
do.
I had the cassette tape and the Walkman. I was listening to a lot of tapes and stuff, Tony Robbins and all these different Nightingale Conant. I used to get these magazines and stuff with catalogs and stuff on them. But anyways, I was listening to that stuff, and I was starting to listen to some things on real estate. And I thought, man, this sounds pretty cool. So I was way in that position of, should I take a job? Should I try this real estate thing? Well, this happened to be at the same time there was this advertisement on a local television station about an upcoming seminar in Cincinnati, Ohio, through a gentleman that most people probably don't know, but his name was Charles Givens. So I don't. Do you remember him, Rick, at all?
Don't remember that one. No.
Okay, all right. He was really old school on this, but he's kind of one of the granddaddies in this whole thing, kind of like Robert Allen. So, anyways, I listened to. I said, "Man, I'm gonna go to that." So I went to that seminar, sat there for about 3 days, listened to all these different strategies and things they could do. One of them stuck out to me so much was well, two of them really, but one was the strategy of wholesaling properties. Okay. The other one was fixing properties up to sell. And it wasn't called the flipping, we called it retail. So
Okay.
it was wholesale or retail.
Right.
And I thought I could do that because I had a lot of construction background, stuff like that. So I went back and basically turned down the job opportunity that I had and just decided I was going to make this happen. So I went in the position of I first thing I go out and start doing, I just started wholesaling. That's
Okay.
immediately what I started doing because I had to generate money now, okay, to take care of bills at home. And that's what I did. Went out in Springfield, started running around and locking up properties. And I would, I mean, beginning stages, I mean, some of them I made $500 on, some of them I made $2,500 on. And I figured, well, if I can make 2,500, why couldn't I push it to five? And back in the 90s, if you were making five on the wholesale, you were doing pretty good. So, so I started doing that and I started doing multiple deals and really kind of evolved from there and just kind of fast forward on that side, Rick, I got to the point where within a very short period of time, I thought, man, I can start fixing these properties up, you sell them retail. And that's exactly what I started doing. I started going out, started doing that side. I went out and actually I didn't have the money, so I got private capital. I
Okay.
had no idea what private capital was, and nobody talked about it back then. Nobody,
Yep.
I mean, there was no discussion about private money. You know what I mean? If there was, it was real simple. I mean, literally, you could run an ad in the newspaper and say, "I will pay you 15% on your money, secured by real estate."
Really.
And that's how we would bring in some private lenders. But what I did, even got, and that was after it got a little advanced. um, so I went in. I'll never forget this. It was over by the Dayton International Airport. There was um, the investor. There was an old bank building, and then back down in the basement of this old bank building, there was a small investor group. They would get together, and I decided to go to that investor group and start hanging out over there. And there was probably just, I don't know, 15, 20 people. And one night I said, I'm going to get up in front because they give everybody a chance to say something. I got up in front and had no idea what I was doing. And all they had was an old flip chart. I got up in front of the room and I said, look, I'm pretty good at finding these deals. And I wrote down the numbers and stuff that I was finding deals for. I said, I'm going to start fixing these things up and reselling them. I said, I'm already wholesaling them, but I want to start fixing them up, reselling them. So I said, here's the scoop. I'll find it. I'll make sure it's fixed up. I'll market it and get it sold. I need you to write a check, shut up, and wait for a bigger check.
There you go.
That was my
Right.
pitch. And that's how I got my first lender. It was a doctor. He was coming to the meetings and he says, hey, Jerry, he says, I've been wanting to get involved in real estate. He says, I'd never have the time because he worked at the hospital and then he taught at the university. He didn't have time. He says, but you know what I can do? He says, I can write you checks. I said, I can take your checks. And that's how we started, Rick, right there. So that's how I started getting to the fix and flip model and just continued to grow that. Guys, and fast forward, I grew that out. Wife and I worked from our home in Springfield, built up a pretty good business to the point where we actually got written up in the paper on a real nice thing. It was cool and stuff. And then guys, I some of you know my story that maybe are listening, but I went through a major tragedy, personal tragedy. Then too, my wife and I were cruising along in the business and found out that we were going to have a baby together, and we were real excited. And then about about 7 months into her pregnancy, she started having a lot of complications, and I ended up having our baby premature. And then we found out the day he was born that my wife had a tumor, and we ended up finding out it was cancer, kidney cancer. And so within 2 hours of my son being born.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, so it was like, good Lord, just flipped my whole life around. We um we battled that, guys, and it was, I could tell you on that for hours because it was unbelievable what I went through on that. Um, but what my wife that time went through was just horrendous. She ended up being in the hospital for 4 months straight. Actually, treated at Children's Hospital in Columbus because it was childhood cancer called Wilms tumor. and finally got her home. But Rick, after we got her home, cancer reoccurred, and first wife passed away 10 months after my boy was born. And so I it was a lot, and I had to rebuild. It took me about 2 years to get back to the point of almost getting functional and stuff again. And so like I say, there's so much there, guys, I could share with you on things, but I can just tell you that I think one of the big reasons I like to share that is I like to share that because people understand who I am and also what my what story is, what I went through, and shows you all to also that no matter what, you can go on in life somehow, right? So
Right. Yeah, you can
and
make it through
so
whatever.
that's I did remarry my lovely wife now, Joyce, which you've met Joyce before, Rick, and that's how I ended up in the Dayton area over in a little community called Germantown. I live there now, and we grew a grew up our family there. We got 4 kids living with us there, but now they're starting to sprout out. So I'm getting married and things like that. So, but that's what I've developed over the years. And then we got on the real estate side, I really built this machine up on things. Been able to build it out and hire some good people. Ashley, that works for me, she's been with me over 11 years. Runs the day-to-day operations of things. Very skilled individual. So she's amazing what she does, and and you've met her too, Rick, obviously on things. But it's allowed me to step out of that and then focus a lot more on what I have a huge passion for is training people and helping them grow their businesses through our systems and operations training, which you've been through, as well as our the thing I love too is sales training, helping people really convert more of their leads and create bigger margins on every deal. So
Yeah.
that's my 30,000 foot view.
Well, let's unpack some of that because I'll tell you, Jerry, with your experience, a lot of I'll speak in my opinion of what people get caught up in when they get in real estate, even after you've been in for, I mean, even myself, been doing it for 15 years, and it's like sometimes you get caught up in the noise of what you see online,
Oh man, I'm huge. Yeah.
things like that. Everything you just said, all the way back to going to your that event and getting your private money lender, even before that, where you said you started listening to cassette tapes and things like that. You just took somebody on a journey of the truth of how to build a real estate investing business, which number one starts with being inspired by something. Yours happened to be a cassette tape. Mine was the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Then it rolled into what's the transition? People usually get skilled at finding deals, and we teach people and we've learned once you get skilled at finding deals, you can pretty much write your own check, right?
Yeah,
Regardless.
absolutely.
And then you went into the power of networking, right? Going to meetups. Back then they weren't called meetups, but they're going to the power of meetups. I mean, everything you just said, if you took that and wrote it down in a book, that's an educational program on how to build a real estate investing. I mean, that's the without all the fluff. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I never even thought about that way.
You just said, you said. So let me ask you something really quick. We'll kind of go through that all the way back then because this led all the way up to you teaching people, right? How were you finding your deals back then, before the days of the internet, before the days of all this stuff we have now, all the noisy stuff? How were you finding deals back then?
Yeah, great question. And I've been asked that a lot. What's so funny on it, Rick, is when I started this back in the early 90s, that I mean, we didn't have all the stuff. I mean, we
Yeah.
so some of our biggest producers was one running ads in the newspaper.
Okay.
That was our Google PPC.
Okay. Okay.
So we would run ads in the newspaper and we would fight over the location. There was like 3 or 4 of us. We would fight over the location. They would do it in alphabetical order.
Yep.
So once we figured that out, we would start adding A's in front of our name
Okay.
until the newspaper called us up and said, "That's enough, guys." We had one point we had like 3 or 4 A's in front of it. And so it was pretty nuts on things, but that's how we started out on. So um, it wasn't uncommon, Rick, to have 35 to 50 leads a week coming in from our newspaper ad.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So that was one. Um, Working with real estate agents was another one. Now, back then, the way we done the MLS, it was a book, looked like a phone book. So every week, what I would do is go over to one of my real estate agents I work with. Her name is Judy. I would go to her office. She would give me the old MLS book, and then I would go through it and then basically mark them with a highlighter. And those are ones I go look at.
Okay.
Um, so I had that. Then I started into the bank REO side of things too. In fact, I met one of my good friends still to this day that basically had been doing the REO side as long as I've been doing the real estate investment side. So I started buying stuff with them. Now, the REO side back then was really sweet because you didn't have it was basically you get a phone call and say, hey Jerry, hey, I got one coming up 123 Main Street. Cool. When's it going on the MLS? It'll be available on Tuesday. Okay, cool. Here's your lockbox. Go check it out. Okay. So I go check it out, get an offer in. Most of the time I would buy it before it hit the MLS.
Yeah.
It would piss people off right and
Yep.
left. So
Yep.
I'd done that a lot. And then, another big thing too was what old school stuff was signage, okay, and driving for dollars.
Yeah.
But driving for dollars back then, guys, was not easy. We would drive for dollars, and I would typically um, have some with me, okay, or I would take a recorder with a little mini cassette in it, and we would just record the addresses. Then I would take that, and my wife at that time would turn around and start the research on it. But the thing is, remember, there was no internet that was being, nobody was, I mean, very light on any type of internet stuff, but nothing was available like that online.
Right.
So what we would have to do is we could call and get maybe 4 or 5 addresses at a time, tax mailing addresses. But most of the time, what I would have to do, I would have to pay someone, go to the courthouse, and it would take them probably about 6 hours to research 50 names.
Wow.
So,
Huh.
and that's how we done it, man. That was our biggest thing, dude. It was crazy. It was
People now have no idea how blessed and fortunate we are that we can do it all from our phones.
oh, dude, yeah. I mean, everything was work.
Right. Right.
Okay, there was
Yeah.
no services, nothing like that. It was just pure work.
Grind. People that
And it,
the term grind, right?
yeah, that's it. I mean, basically, you looked at it and said, okay, how am I going to get leads? Well, I got to go out and find them, or I run it. The easiest thing we had was a newspaper.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
think that's awesome, man. So you went through the transition of wholesaling back then to rehabbing. Now we mind sharing the story from I know you went from rehabbing and you X that, you had enough. I remember you shared a story about what was going on in your office and all that. And then you felt
yeah,
like building an actual business as providing wholesale opportunities to other rehabbers. Can you share that little transition?
yeah. So I was so went pretty heavy in the rehab side. And we probably done, I don't know, 400 around that realm, somewhere around there. And we were doing heavy. That was during a lot of the heavy bank REO cycle on things. So I bought a lot of those deals. And I got to the point where grew this machine up. I had multiple people working for me. I forget what we got up to, Rick, but it was a good 15 to 18 people I had working. And I had multiple project managers overseeing the rehabs, things like that. But dude, one day I realized something here, and I started thinking about it. And one of the things I thought about, I said, man, I said, what happens if I don't go to work?
Yeah.
What happens on that? I said, none of the shit works. I said, this is all about me,
Yeah.
right? And I had this big team, and they were all just riding this Jerry wave. And I thought, this, wait a minute, this is not a business.
Yeah.
Okay. And I came to the point where I'll never forget this. I drew a line down the center piece of paper. One side I wrote business, the other side I wrote real estate. And I realized to that point in time, I only had been on one side of the paper, and that has been in real estate.
Yeah.
So what I would really what happened on I became a deal chaser.
Yeah.
And that's all I was doing day after day after day after day after day after day. And I was never in the position where I built a company. So I started looking at that. And on top of that, I had all these people working for me, and I didn't like 90% of them. I built this, and it wasn't a good fit core value wise, and none of that stuff. And in fact, one of the guys that worked for me was the best man at my wedding.
Really?
Been with me to that point, I don't know, 12 years or more. And I was like, man, this is not working. And we went in and we started applying things like we really started tracking the KPIs. And to that point, I didn't even know what a KPI was.
Right.
Okay. And I had no idea what it stood for. So I went and started applying these KPIs and started looking at things. And what happened on that, Rick, was like, wow, this whole light bulb came on, because what I realized was people were getting away with murder and I was paying for it. And all this, basically all the smoke and mirrors and stuff. But when we started really tracking the KPIs, it was like, wow, all this started changing. I hear a lot of people, I look at people today all the time that are talking about things on this, and people are really fortunate today because they have this information available to them, where back then most of us were grinding for years, never knew any other difference on that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that came clear, and then all of a sudden it's like, let's put these all these KPIs in place and start really tracking things. And next thing this person, we found out, wow, they got huge gaps in their schedule. And then, one of the gentlemen that worked for me was like, what is he doing with all his time? And I realized that it was just huge gaps. And it was disappointing. It was disappointing on that side, Rick, but I learned a ton of it. And um, I ended up firing probably 85% of the whole team,
Wow. And then
clean house.
when you say gaps, you found out there was times where they were just not doing nothing in their
Yeah,
8
they
hours.
weren't doing nothing, or um, they weren't being very efficient with their time. There was this lot of holes. Okay. And because I just blindly trusted, right? And then, one of the things I always learned from Brian Tracy is Brian Tracy always talks about that delegation is not true delegation without inspection.
Right.
Okay.
That's a good nugget right there.
Yeah. And so I had to learn a hard lesson on that. And I did, and I ended up have to pretty well clean house. And we basically restarted over. And I just made a decision then that not all, I mean, we didn't go completely out of rehabs, but we dwindled way down. We started moving more and more towards more wholesale transactions. And I was still buying and holding some properties. I had some multifamilies I was buying and things like that. But I went to the point where I went heavy wholesale.
Okay. And that's what's your team look like today?
So now we've just got it to the point where I don't have that big team of 18 to 20 anymore. We maintain about 7 of us, and that's involved acquisitions, dispositions, some assistants, things like that, and then Ashley overseeing the operational side of things. So
Yeah. You guys still in the office down there in Germantown?
so I don't have the whole big office like I did before where you were at. Only reason being is they got little, I don't own that building. And you remember I don't know if you remember the old building I had. I used to have a building over in Germantown. I don't know if you were ever on that one, but that's where my office was for years. I had that, and nice building, but we kind of outgrew that side of things. And I ended up selling that. But then over here, we had this space, and I still have some of it, but I don't have as much as I did. on it
Love it.
just because, a lot of our team, some of them virtual, some of them, it made more sense and it just, rent kept going up. So I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to do that. So,
Are you a fan of having your team in the same place?
I mean, I do like that on things. We are doing some more virtual stuff right now, but actually at the first of the year, we're going to be doing some stuff on, in fact, just this morning I was talking to a gentleman about some different space. We're going to really bring some more of the sales reps back into one confined space. It's just there's a synergy about that, I believe.
Culture. Yeah, I'm with
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's awesome, man. So transition over into how, you've obviously got 30 years doing the real estate. What inspired you to want to teach people?
It was funny. I I was just doing the business, and when I know you've experienced this too. You're just doing the business, and then people start asking questions, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And you get more and more questions. But what was interesting on that is I noticed that I really enjoyed helping people on that. And a little bit of my history too on this, Rick, but I back in the early 2000s, I got approached with like Robert Allen and his group,
yeah.
okay, on things, and asked me to come and speak with them. So, so, and you're very familiar with that. And I had that opportunity, and when I started doing that, I thought, damn, I really like this. Okay, I what I liked the ability to go in and take people that have never done the business before, or somebody that's maybe done a little bit, and then turn around and show them these different strategies, and then literally watch their life change. And it's like
That's right in front of you.
so
Yeah,
cool on that
yeah,
side of things. And
yeah.
obviously, you have the whiners and the ones that never do a thing, right? They blame the world for everything on that side. Um, but it was really cool. And then from there, I got to the point where it kept developing in 2008. That whole seminar business. A lot of people don't realize what a collapse that was too. We had the company that I was working with, we were speaking with, um, was doing $1 million in revenue per weekend,
Mhm. I believe
per
it.
weekend, per
Yeah,
weekend. So you know what it's like on that side of the big machines, right?
yeah,
And literally, when the whole financial crisis happened, within about 3 weeks, it was all gone.
yeah. People quit spending money on that stuff. Yeah,
It was just boom, gone.
yeah.
Okay. And we're talking millions and millions of dollars, what I mean, coming in. And it was just gone. I think they had 60 some employees, and
Oh, wow.
it was just boom, it was gone, just like that.
Right.
So
So you would say the foundation of your real estate never went away, though.
yeah, right. Yeah, I was still doing the real estate side, and then what was that? And then I got to the point where after that, I kept going out and was just doing the real estate real heavy, and next thing you know, people started asking me some different things, and then it kind of developed into doing some coaching, and then end up doing the event that you came to, which is an event I always done in my office here, my
Yeah,
systems and operations training, where we really just show people how we develop our
right.
business over the years, right?
Yeah,
And that has been something that people come in, spend 2 days with us, and it kept growing from there. And that was always a big demand. And we're we took a little break from that this year some, but we're planning on relaunching that again next year on things.
well, I can tell you that that event, the Systems and Ops event, was a major impact on us and in our business. Number one, you're a great teacher, and your experience is not really matchable. There's not many people that can honestly say they've been doing real estate for that long. You get the people that have, you know what I mean. But
I know.
to be able to simplify it, and we were talking before this, the importance of having your team stay in their boxes and finding out what those boxes are, and having in their own that little nugget, that little piece of your event changed the game for us completely. And we're just a small little family owned deal here, but my sister, myself, and my son, and our project manager, now we all have our boxes. And I'm still guilty of interfering in their boxes every once in a while. And I think that's
We all
something
do.
I really, I think about that every time I get in somebody's way. I think about, stay out of their box. And I'm like, you're in their box again. But I thank you for that. So anybody listening to this, I highly recommend, if you have an opportunity to connect with Jerry on that, do so. But let's take about the next step now. The most important thing, just in my opinion, we talked about is understanding how to find a deal, right? The next thing is how to have a conversation with that seller after you find the deal that you're interested in. Let's talk about your REI Sales Academy, Jerry. That you've impacted thousands of people all over the country with this. Let's educate me on that.
Yeah, it's so a lot of people know the Sales Academy from the original founder, John Martinez, who created that. I actually acquired the business from John a little over 2 years ago. And that's and the reason I looked at that, it was a bolt on to what I was doing. It was you know, I was already doing a lot of sales training, and I had studied a lot of John's trainings and stuff like that, and spoke at his different events before. So I know the power of it. And what I realized, out of this really was, Rick, is this is something I see in new investors as well as very experienced investors. And what I found was that so many people think that it's just about making a lot of offers. Obviously, you got to make offers, but they think it's just about making bunches of offers. And you got to remember, I've done a little over 3,000 deals now. And over those years, for many, many years, I went on all the appointments myself in the field.
Yeah.
And by doing that, it really educated me on the ability to connect with people. And what's even more interesting on this is when I got involved in the sales training component of it, I realized that this has really nothing to do with sales whatsoever at all. So many people out there, they're like, man, I just got to fire away these offers and I got to pound the crap out of someone and make it, it's like, no, you don't. What it's about is being a problem solver.
Yep.
And it's understanding how to do something, what we call more empathetic listening, active listening, understanding that. And it's starting to understand that all human beings are wired in certain ways identically. Okay. And we all have our different personalities and all that stuff. But internally, we're all wired the same. And based upon that, there are certain things that we do when it comes to making what we call complex decisions. Okay. And people don't realize this, that think about this. A lot of people, complex decision, what is that? Well, complex decision is really anything that has more than about 3 or 4 variables. Well, sometimes, and think about this, when we're dealing with real estate, does it have more than 3 or 4 variables? 100%. So, Rick, most people, what are they trying to do? They're trying to close people from what we call a logical side of the brain. Okay. When this is proven scientifically that majority of your complex decisions cannot be made from the logical side of the brain. They only can be made from the emotional side of the brain. Right. Most people are trying to close from the logical side. That's why you hear all these people saying, well, I'm just collecting offers. I'm now, well, just give me your offer. Well, I'm gonna get some more offers right now.
Right.
It's because you didn't do your job. And unfortunately, most people don't know that in our business. this is new investors as well as seasoned investors. I see this all the time because I train people all over the country. I have people overseas that I work with. And what they've had to learn is that what you think you know in sales, a lot of you just got to throw away
Yep.
because sales is not, again, about selling. It's, to me, sales is this, it's assisting someone in a decision making process.
Mhm.
And you do that by understanding where they're at now, where they want to be. The best thing I can always do is step out, kind of use the analogy of a doctor. I think you probably heard me share this before. But if you think about it, you go to a physician, you go in, that physician checks you out. And let's just say you go in there and they only check you out for a couple minutes, which is not uncommon nowadays, right? Check you out on things. But let's say you got some underlying things going on and you're trying to share that, but your doctor doesn't listen and you go to check out. You're probably thinking to yourself, you know, I don't feel comfortable with that. I'm probably going to get a second opinion. Do you know why that second opinion's there? Because you have doubt, you have concerns. And what happened was the physician did not do the proper exam. When they didn't do the proper exam, they didn't do the proper diagnosis, and it made you think about going somewhere else. And it's the same thing that happens with most investors when it comes to working with sellers.
Okay.
They don't do the proper exam. So and then you turn around and try to diagnose them. And then it's what basically it's premature diagnosis, but in the real estate world.
Right.
So I've learned that, to me, just kind of giving you a big, that 30,000-foot view of things. That's what this is about. And it's about helping the new investor who's just starting up. Because I get a lot of new investors that say, man, is this too early to do sales training? And I'll ask them a question. I'll say, are leads expensive? No. Well, yeah, it's expensive. Okay. So do you care do you care about making sure that you maximize all the leads and convert as many leads as possible? Yeah, absolutely. Now I'll ask them a question. If you had 30 leads, would you, or excuse me, say you had 30 leads coming in, would you be in a position where you want to close 1 out of 30 or 1 out of every 15? And they said, well, 1 out of every 15. I said, how do you do that? They said, well, I guess I get better at knowing how to do that, right? How to close them. I said, absolutely. So,
Right.
and that's
Right.
really what comes down. Then the seasoned investors we work with all the time typically are ones that, they're starting to grow and they want to build a team. But the problem is when they're starting to build a team, what happens is all the sales skills stick in their head, right? That they've acquired, and it's hard to put in the team's head. So what we do
Yes.
is we step in, become the training arm for their team.
Yep. I'm 100% guilty of that, Jerry. 100%. 100%. So you just hit on something. So if you were going to give a nugget to someone right now, you said something that I think all of us deal with probably every day. When the person says, "What's your offer?" What do you say to the guy you're coaching when they're on the phone or they're on the TV commercial or the text message or whatever, and it says, "Yeah, just send me your offer."
Well, when I always look at this is, first of all, if you say that line of, hey, just send me your offer, I mean, to me, Rick, when you're saying that, I'm just going to say, well, Rick, you know, I'm not even sure that I can help you at this time.
Right.
Okay. And what it is, it's understanding, guys, that the best people that convert on the highest level always stay one step behind the seller.
Okay.
Okay. Always step once. And basically, what our goal is always be pulling them towards a no.
Okay.
And if most people have a hard time understanding that.
Yeah.
Why would you want them to go towards a no? A no is when people become honest. When you tell people no, they become honest. Yes creates pressure.
Right.
Okay. So it's best to move them towards a no because a no relieves sales pressure. Think about that.
Yep.
So, if I can do that, I might be in a position where I'm talking to you, Rick, and I'll say, Rick, it doesn't sound like you right now. It sounds like you maybe haven't made a decision to sell at this time, and that's perfectly okay. Let's just call it a no for now, Rick. How's that sound?
Perfect.
All right. And then I'll say, Rick, I'm just curious. You know, if you ever did decide to sell either now or later, why would you? And I can do that and really get a very good, honest answer because I just took all the sales pressure away.
Right.
Okay. So just throwing a little tip out there for everybody.
That's definitely a nugget because that's what people get. You get the postcard going out, or however they're getting in contact with the seller. And a lot of times you get the people that want to test the waters and say, "Hey, just send me your offer," right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
we get stuck. We're like, "Well, wait a minute. Now what do I say? Now what do I do?" And everybody's guilty of
Yeah.
it until you learn. But I
You
think
just
that's
got to learn that time. Think about this. Yeah. The easiest way to look at it is anytime anybody puts up resistance, you pull back. Okay. There's tools that we teach within our sales academy. There's 3 or 4 tools that we use with that. But overall, the theme on that is resistance, pull back.
got it. How does
Okay.
your sales academy work, Jerry?
What's that?
How does your sales academy work? What does that look? If I'm interested, I got somebody's watching this video and they're like, "Man, I want to learn from this guy." How do
Yeah.
people?
Well, the best thing to do on it, first of all, you can just reach out to me. One, you can hit me up on Facebook or you can hit me up on Instagram and the Jerry Green, or you can just go to my website, the REI Sales Academy, and go right in there and look up, click on our Academy tab, book a call on things. But the way the Academy is set up, guys, is really, Rick, is I got it set up where um, you come in, uh, you're a lifetime member in the Academy. Once you come in, we actually have our intellectual property that we've designed for this. And when you become a member, we actually give you a licensing agreement to be able to use our process, okay, and use it within your team. As long as they're on your team, you can do that. And I do a live training every week, okay. It's a live training. It's interactive, so you can come on that side of things. And obviously, you guys know it. You're part of it on that. And it's kind of and I've added to that since I took over the academy. I've expanded that. It's actually an 18-week series now, and then we
Okay.
reset that. Um, Used to be just 12 weeks. 12 weeks is our core sales process, and then just 6 additional weeks are for the ability to do role playing live, to listen to calls live, and just be interactive and really take that to the next level. Okay, we do that, and plus we have a what we call our online portal too, where you can access everything and kind of go at your own pace. We have all our scripts, talk tracks in there. We have training there for lead managers, training for cold callers, everything that you can think of when it comes to sales.
All in one shop. I think that's awesome, man. What are your you said you do your weekly trainings and that's you doing them?
Majority of them are done by me.
Okay.
I might have somebody on the team help me out, but I really enjoy doing them. I really
Good.
do. I love that side of things. I mean, sales is just a real passion of mine because I know that can affect someone's business more than anything.
Yes.
Okay. And I see that's one of the biggest things I see so many investors in this business, new investors as well as seasoned ones. They really struggle with this because what happens is they start generating leads and they think the answer is always generate more leads. But a lot of times you just got to get a lot better converting your leads.
Right.
I mean, generating the leads is important. I mean, that's crucial. You got to have that steady flow of leads. But if you can't convert them, it doesn't really matter.
Right. Right. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I appreciate the nuggets. I'm sure there's a lot of people getting good information out of this, Jerry. I think the transition of doing the business to owning your business, turning it actually into a business, right? To where that's running and operating. while you're over here educating people to do the same thing. I think that's extremely powerful, man. And I thank you for everything that you've done for us in our business
Oh,
and what you can.
absolutely, man.
What's Jerry's big? What's next for you, man? I mean, you're building the real estate. And what's your 2025 look like?
I'm literally looking at, I want to really continue to grow tremendously on the sales side. That's a
Okay.
big component of that. Make a much bigger impact. I got a book on the horizon of things. So that's another big thing that I'm looking at.
Okay.
And it's just my sons, I think you've seen now my couple of my boys, you've met them. I think Jordan and Kendall, and my goal is to work with them more. And they're doing the rehab side. Okay.
Nice. Yeah.
And they started their own construction company last year.
Really?
And yep. And just started a construction business at 19 years old and in 23. So they're rocking and rolling. They're on there's and they've already rolled into more of doing the fix and flip model on things. So they're doing that. They got a couple rehabs getting ready to go on the market here that they're doing right now, and then they actually flipped a mobile home. So
I saw that video. I saw that video. They did that work themselves, huh?
yeah, they've done that work themselves, and it turned out pretty good actually. They picked that up, I think, Rick, for like, see, what did they get that for? $7,500.
Really?
And, yeah, and put about 16 in it, for a mobile home, and turned around and sold it for I think it was like 36,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they doubled their money. Can't beat
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That was it. I mean, ultimately, um, yeah, they've done all right. I think I factored up the other day. I said, you guys, let's just run the numbers on your money you had in it. And I think they made 100, and it was about 128% return on their money.
That's a proud moment, especially be so young. Skip right over all the wholesaling stuff and all that, and go right into rehabs. Just
Yeah. Well, I think they both love construction. They
right.
both love that. And that's their and what's amazing, they're phenomenal at it. They really do an amazing job. So they're highly skilled on that. And
Nice.
they do a good job on that side of things. So they're just learning, and I think they're learning more and more of the lessons of just the overall business side now. So
Uh, what is your before we exit out of here with some people that are paying attention to what you're doing on the real estate side of business? What are you doing to generate leads right now? I know you're a lot bigger than just local. You do virtual and local. How are you generating your leads today?
so Rick, that's changed a lot in the last couple of years. We were 100% direct mail. Our primary one was direct mail for many, many, many years.
Right.
And then we saw diminishing returns on that, and we had to change directions and stuff. But so our big thing right now is PPC,
Okay.
Facebook,
Okay.
and also we do have some cold callers, and also doing texting.
Are you?
Yep, yep.
What platform do you like to use for texting?
Pardon me.
What platform do you like for texting?
Uh, that's an Ashley one.
Is it? What's
um, that is boy, I cannot. I'm trying to remember that one. I
launch control?
No, I think it's Smarter Contact. I think.
Starter contact? Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what they use on things. See, and what's funny, I mean, Rick, I mean, you know this because you've been around me, been in the training and stuff, but yeah, I mean, you guys kind of learn this stuff a little bit, that as you move yourself out of the day-to-day operational component, you don't know all those things that you used to know. And it's really good because it's more of it takes your mind to the things you should be focusing on,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I wanted to highlight the fact of how much the marketing changes all the time.
oh, dude, it's changed a lot. I mean, for years and years, we just done direct mail, and
Right.
that was our biggest producer. But we've had to change a lot on things, and it's interesting on that. Now we have branched out into land some right now too.
You're on land as well?
Yeah, yeah. So
Nice. Nice.
so that's kind of a newer area that we're working on. But it's too early to tell all the results yet, but we're starting to make some traction on that. So
Good for you, man. Good for you. Well, Jerry, I appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge. So, and people can find you, so your social media platforms, your website, reach out to you directly via social media. If
yeah,
anybody needs
absolutely.
Jerry, can't find him anywhere, reach out to me. I'll point you in that direction. Um, and if you were to give anyone one last tip before we wrap it up, what would you tell somebody just getting started in real estate investing today?
Focus.
Boom.
100% focus. There's guys in this world, there's a million ways to make $1,000,000, probably more than that. And I think now there's probably a million ways in real estate itself. So you have to focus. Okay. I've been guilty of that more than once. You know how that goes, Rick, right? It
Daily.
is, yeah. Oh, it's constantly. Yeah. It's focus, guys. Focus. Just become, you know, um, a good mentor of mine told me this: niche equals rich.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Equals
guess
rich.
we'll
I love
leave it at that.
write that on my board here. As a matter of fact, as soon as we get done, that's so. I love that right there because right about the time as an entrepreneur in real estate, no matter what kind of entrepreneur you are, it's mind blowing what goes on up here, right? How
Oh,
many ideas,
100%.
it,
100%.
the ideas and they'll probably all work, but none of them will work great if you try and do 20 of them,
Yep.
right? So I appreciate all the wisdom, the time. I highly recommend, guys, if you're watching this, reach out to Jerry. He's one of my personal coaches, and I thank you for that. And until next time, we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate you, brother.
Man.